In this course, we're going to talk about the different uses of VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, match and index, and the new formulas that just came out recently, XLOOKUP and XMatch. Okay? So all of these functions are going to be used to look up information from maybe one sheet to another sheet, or maybe one table to another table, and so on. So let's take a look at the customer list sheet here. Notice how in the customer list, the company name is the leftmost column, and then I have the customer ID and the contact name and so on. All right. So let's go to the order list sheet. And in the order list, I have the customer ID. So I want to take the customer ID from this sheet, look it up on the other sheet, and return information back to here. Well, for a long time, we would use VLOOKUP to do that. Now, one of the problems with the VLOOKUP is, first of all, it's a little bit complicated and people would always get confused with it. And second of all, notice how we have the customer ID here. And if I go to the customer list sheet, the customer ID is in column B. With the VLOOKUP, I was never able to look to the left of the column where I'm trying to match. With the XLOOKUP, I'll be able to do that. So let's try the classic VLOOKUP. Okay, so I want to go to this cell, and now of course we can always use the FX to build these formulas. In this case, I'm just going to type them in. When we type them in, we'll start to see the syntax come up. So if you do use the FX, however, right over here, then all of the functions I'm going to show you will be under the lookup and reference category. All right, so if I scroll down on the lookup and reference category of the insert function window, there's index, there's HLOOKUP, there's match, which we're going to use today, and then there's VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and XMatch. So all of them would be under the lookup and reference category of the insert function window if you want to go that way, which is no problem. I'm just going to type them in today just so we can see the syntax that way. So I'm going to type in the equal sign, and I'll type in VLOOKUP, and then open the parentheses. Okay. So the first parameter is what we're trying to look up, which in this case will be that customer ID in cell B2. All right, that's what we're trying to look up. Then I'll type in a comma. Now, the next part is the table array. In other words, where are we trying to look it up from? In this case, the table array is on a different sheet. So I'll pick on customer list. Now, with the VLOOKUP, I have to highlight the column that we're going to match plus all of the other columns that we want to use. So I'm going to highlight column B and column C. So now the column that it has to match is going to be column B, because that's the first column of the table, okay? And then you have to go over as many tables, as many columns that you want to include, and we'll see what that means in just a second. All right, so the table array, it says customer list, exclamation point, B:C. When we see the exclamation point in a formula, it means it's going to be a different sheet. So it'll be the customer list sheet, column B and column C, and column B is the column that we have to match because that's the first column of the table. I'm going to type in a comma. Now the column index number is where people get confused in the VLOOKUP. So you don't start with the first column of the sheet. You start with the first column of the table. So in the table, this is column 1 and this is column 2. I want to return the contact name, so I'll type in 2 there. 1, 2. So you don't start from column A unless column A was the first column of the table. You start with the first column of the table. So this is column 1 and then 2. So that's why I have the number 2 here. And then I'll type in a comma. And then if you want to do an exact match, we'll use false. And if you want to do an approximate match, we'll do true, which we'll do in some examples today as well. So I'll double click on the word false and then close the parentheses. So it says equals VLOOKUP, open parentheses, B2, which is the customer ID from the other sheet, comma, customer list, exclamation point B colon C, and the column that we're going to try to match is column B, right? Because that's the first column on the table. Comma 2 means I want to get the second column from that table. This is column 1, and this is column 2. So it's going to return the contact name, and false means you want to do an exact match. I'm going to press the Enter key, and now we're back in the other sheet. So let's think about what it just did. It took VINET, looked it up on the other sheet, found the right one, and returned the contact name back to here. Now let's see if it found the right one. You can see for VINET, it returned Paul. So let me go back to the customer list. Now these happen to be in alphabetical order. So if I scroll down, there's VINET, and then you can see Paul is there. With the VLOOKUP, the matching column always has to be to the left. I can't go to the left of that with the VLOOKUP, but I will be able to go to the left of that with the with the XLOOKUP, which we'll get to pretty soon. Let's go back to the order list. Now let's copy that down. Now here's a great shortcut that'll save you a lot of time with Excel. So I'm going to click on that cell. I'm going to get the black cross in the corner. So that's called the speed fill or the auto fill. Now, of course, you can drag the black cross, but the shortcut is to double click on the black cross. Double click, and it goes all the way down. Okay? So now I have the contact name for each different customer ID. Notice how it says false up there, which means we have to do an exact match. So, for example, I'll type in AAA, and now it says NA. NA means not available or not found. So, because I have the word false in the VLOOKUP, then it didn't find an exact match there, so it says NA. Now, if I want that to say something different than NA, then we have to use another formula. We have to use something that's called is error, or if error. So here's how I would correct that. I'm going to go up to the formula. I'll type in if error, open parentheses. I'm going to come to the end of the whole thing, and I'll type in comma, open quotes, not found, and then close quotes, close parentheses. So it says equals if error, open parentheses. We had the entire VLOOKUP, comma, and the word not found is in quotes because it's text, close parentheses. So now, when it doesn't find it, it says not found. You're going to see when we do the XLOOKUP, we can include the not found value right within the XLOOKUP formula, so I wouldn't need another function when we use the XLOOKUP. Let's go back over here, and I'll type in VINET, and then it will find the appropriate value there. So I can use the if error in general with any kind of formula. If it does have an error, then I can give it a better value. So that's another good function that was included in today's session. So now, let's try to use the new XLOOKUP to find the contact name. We're going to type this one in as well. So I'll type in equals XLOOKUP, open parentheses. The lookup value is still the same. That's going to be that customer ID in cell B2. And I'll type in a comma. Now, for the lookup array, it's still going to be on the other sheet. But now I'm just going to highlight the column I want to match, which is column B. So right away, that's going to be easier than the VLOOKUP. With the VLOOKUP, I have to start there and drag across as many columns as I want to look at. But here, I'm just going to highlight the matching column, which is column B. I'll type in a comma. Now, the return array is what I want to return. So I'm just going to highlight this column. So I don't have to type in that number 2 or get really confusing. I just highlighted this column is the one I want to match, and this column I want to return. So I think they made it easier, as you can see. I'll type in a comma. Now, here, look, if not found. Remember with the VLOOKUP, I had to include a whole other formula here. Well, here I can build it right in. So if it's not found, I'll say not found, and that's going to be in quotes because it's text, comma, and then here's the match mode. So we'll do an exact match. Now these two over here, these other choices will be for when we do the true type of VLOOKUP in a couple minutes, but this one's going to be an exact match, Good. And then another comma. Now the search mode, on the VLOOKUP, I can only go from the top to the bottom. With the XLOOKUP, I can go from the bottom to the top when we say search last to first. The significance of that is that with the VLOOKUP, let's say I was looking for this particular customer ID. If it was in there more than once, I would only ever find the first one. But because with the XLOOKUP, I can search from the bottom, I can find the other occurrences of that same customer ID or whatever you're looking for. So that's a big factor as well. In this case, I don't have to type that in, so I'll just type in another comma and then close the parentheses. Actually, those last two parameters are actually optional. You don't have to type in those commas, but no problem. So I really like the XLOOKUP because here I'm just picking the column I want to match, and then here I'm just going to pick the column that I want to return. I think they made that much more straightforward than the VLOOKUP. So when I hit the Enter key, then in this case, let me get rid of those parameters there. Okay, so you can see in this case, we just have comma 0, and then I thought that was a lot more straightforward than the VLOOKUP. That's the whole point of the XLOOKUP, was to make that easier. And I'm going to copy that down. So it gives you the same results as the VLOOKUP, but I just think it's easier to use because here I just have the column that I want to match, and then I have the column that I want to return, so I don't have to make it more complicated like the VLOOKUP does. Now, here's another great advantage of the XLOOKUP. With the VLOOKUP, I have the matching column and I have to go to the right of that. There's no way I can go to the left of the matching column. With the XLOOKUP, I can. So watch. Remember how on the customer list sheet, the company name is over here in column A, right? Well, watch what we're going to do. I'll type in equals XLOOKUP, open parentheses. The lookup value is still going to be that customer ID right there in cell B2, comma. The lookup array, we're going to go back to the customer list, and I'll highlight column B again, right? That's still the column that I want to match. And then another comma. And now the return array, I want to return column A. I can actually go to the left of that now. We can never do that with the VLOOKUP. I'll type in a comma. So again, if it's not found, I'll say not found there. Good. So that replaces the whole if error right there. Type in a comma, and we'll do an exact match. And that's really the last parameter that we need. I'm going to close that parentheses. I'm going to press the Enter key. And then notice how we were able to return the company name back to here. All right, so if I go back to the VLOOKUP, you know, I can try to put a negative number there. So I'll try to put a -1. You know, it just isn't going to let me do that, right? So, or I'll try to put 0 or some other way to go to a negative number. It just is not going to let me do that. So in this case, I'll put it back to the number 2. Good. So that's a big advantage of the XLOOKUP, is we can actually go to the left of the column that we're going to try to match. And I'm going to copy that down. Now, if I come over here, I'll type in AAA. This one says not found because we had to do the if error, right? We had to do that whole extra function. This one says not found because it's built right into the XLOOKUP, as you can see. And this one says not found because it's built right into the XLOOKUP. So I really think they've made the XLOOKUP better than the VLOOKUP, or easier to use for the reasons that I'm talking about. Let's go back and put that back so it says VINET. Okay, good. Now, the VLOOKUP there was the word false, which means it's going to be an exact match. And for the XLOOKUP, it had the 0 at the end, which is the exact match there. Now let's try a VLOOKUP and an XLOOKUP where it doesn't have to be an exact match. In this sheet, I want to take the number score, run it against this table, and return the grade. So this time I don't have to do an exact match. Anything between 0 and 39 will give us an F. Let's try it with the classic VLOOKUP. So I'll do equals VLOOKUP, open parentheses. The lookup value is going to be that 36 right there, which is cell B2, and I'll type in a comma. The table array is, I'm going to highlight column F and column G. So again, with the VLOOKUP, I have to include the matching columns and the columns to the right that I want to include. Type in a comma. The column index number, again, is going to be 2. You start from here. This is column 1, and this is column 2. So I'll type in 2 there, and then another comma. Now this time, I don't have to do an exact match, so I'll double-click in the word true, and let's see what that does for us. I'm going to close the parentheses. So the whole thing here says equals VLOOKUP, open parentheses, B2, comma F colon G, comma 2, comma true, close parentheses. So it says F. If that VLOOKUP had the word false at the end, then it would say NA here, because 36 is not on the list. But because we have the word true, it's going to match the range. So everything between 0 and 39 will give us an F. All right? So that's what the word true means when we use the VLOOKUP. I'm going to copy that down. Let's see how we would do that with the XLOOKUP. So I'll say equals XLOOKUP, open parentheses. The lookup value is still going to be that 36, and I'll type it, which is cell B2. I'll type in a comma. Now remember, for the XLOOKUP, for the lookup value, the lookup array, I just have to highlight that first column, okay? Which is F colon F. That's where I'm trying to match, comma. And now for the return array, I'm just going to highlight this column over here. So I don't have to worry about that 1 and the 2 and things like that. I'll do another comma. If not found, well, that one doesn't apply here because it's probably not going to be found. I'm going to type in another comma. Now the match mode means that I don't need to do an exact match. So we're going to say exact match or the next smaller item. So that's the same thing as saying the true in the VLOOKUP. Or it could be the next larger item. That's a new feature in the XLOOKUP. But usually we'll use that first, this choice here. And here we could even do a wildcard. So I'll double click there. It puts -1 there. And then that'll be the end of the XLOOKUP. So it says equals XLOOKUP, open parentheses, B2, comma F colon F, comma G colon G, comma, comma, -1. So when you type it in, at least it tells you what those parameters mean as you type that in. And now here we have the F. But the advantage, I think, is, with the VLOOKUP, I have to highlight the matching column and as many columns as I need to go to the right. And then I have to count from that column over, and that's how I got to the number 2. With the XLOOKUP, I just think it's more straightforward. Here, I'm just going to highlight the column that I want to match, and then here I'm going to highlight the column that I want to return. So I hope that you'll see that the XLOOKUP is just easier to work with. I just think it's more straightforward. I'm going to copy that one down. We get the same answers. I just think it's easier to use the XLOOKUP rather than the VLOOKUP. So let's try another example like that. I'm going to come over on this other sheet. Okay, so this time I want to take that salary and run it against the table and return the tax rate. So I'll type in 30,000 here. And then here we have the VLOOKUP. Let's take a look at that VLOOKUP. Equals VLOOKUP, B2 is where the 30,000 is, comma D2 through F7. So again, this is the column I want to match, and I have to include these other columns, D2 to F7. And then comma 3 means I want to return the third column when I find a match, 1, 2, 3, which will return the tax rate. Notice how the fourth parameter isn't there. The fourth parameter is actually optional on both the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP. Let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to pick on the FX over here. So you see how these are in dark black? That means that they're required. And this one's in light black. That means it's optional. So let's see what that range lookup really says. Range lookup is a logical value. That means it's going to be the word true or the word false. To find the closest match in the column, then you could put true there, like we did before. Or if you omit it, like it is here, then it means true. And an exact match means false. So if you put the word false there, it'll be an exact match. Now, some people also use 0. 0 would be an exact match as well if you ever see a 0 in your VLOOKUPs. Now, you can put true there. You can leave that last one blank, or you can put, sometimes you'll see a positive 1 there, all right? And then that means it's a true, which means it's going to match the range. So when it's blank like that, it means really a true, which means it's going to match the range. So I'll click on OK. So the 30,000 is between 27.3 and 58.5. Everything between 27.3 and 58.5 is going to give us the 31%. So that's how we'll do that with the VLOOKUP. Let's see how you'll do it with the XLOOKUP. So I'll do equals XLOOKUP, open parentheses. The lookup value will be that 30,000, which is cell B2, comma. The lookup array is just the first column, right? I can just highlight these cells or highlight the entire column. It's fine. Type in a comma. Now, the return array, I'm just going to highlight these numbers over here, right? So I don't have to get involved with that 1, 2, 3 stuff or anything like that. This is the column of matching. This is the column I want to return. Nice and simple. I'll type in a comma. The not found here doesn't really apply because, we're going to make it so it's not an exact match. And here I'll say exact match or next smaller item like we did before. All right. And then I'm going to close that parentheses. So it says equals XLOOKUP, open parentheses, B2, comma D2 colon D7, comma F2, comma F7, comma, -1. So it says 0.31. We'll just change that to a % format, as you can see. All right, and then it did find the exact same one. So we can use the XLOOKUP either to do that exact match, like we saw with the VLOOKUP, or even to match the range. Let's go over here. Now, the XLOOKUP also replaces the HLOOKUP. Now, V means vertical. Like on this case, the table is vertical. It's going down the screen. H means horizontal. This means it's going across. So let's see what we have here. Here's the salary, and here's the HLOOKUP formula. So I'll go over here and I'll type in 30,000. And now it says HLOOKUP. H means horizontal. So B2 is the cell that we're trying to look up, which is the 30,000, comma E1 through J3. So it's what I have in light blue over here, E1 to J3. This time it's matching the first row, whereas with the VLOOKUP, you're matching the first column. So it's almost like the table, it's on its side. And then the 3 means when I find the right one, I'm going to go 3 rows down, 1, 2, 3, and that's where we're getting the tax rate. Notice again that the fourth parameter is not there. Well, let me go back to the FX. And just like with the VLOOKUP, the fourth parameter is actually optional, all right? You can see it's optional because it's light black over here, and the same kind of thing. If you omit it, it's the same thing as putting true there, which means we're matching the range. So I'll click on OK. So the 30,000 gave us 31%. Everything between 27.3 and 58.5 will give us 31%. That's how I would do it with the HLOOKUP. Now we can use the XLOOKUP to replace the HLOOKUP as well. So I'll say equals XLOOKUP, open parentheses. The lookup value will still be that 30,000. Type in a comma. The lookup array is this time going to be that first row, right? So I'm just going to highlight from E1 to J1, comma. And then the return array will be the tax rates. Good. We're going to skip the if not found parameter. I'm going to go type in a comma again. And then once again, I'll use the exact match or the smaller item. And it puts a -1 there. And then close the parentheses. So I have equals XLOOKUP, open parentheses, B2, comma E1 colon J1, comma E3 colon J3, comma, comma, -1. And it gives us the same result. And of course, I'll make that into % format. So you don't have to worry about the different versions of the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP anymore. All of those can be replaced by the XLOOKUP. All right, so I hope you're getting some good ideas about using the XLOOKUP. Now, another really popular way to look up things in another table is match and index. So let's see how we can use match and index, and then we'll use something new that's called XMatch. So this time we have a two-dimensional table. I want to find what row that we're looking in, and I want to find what column that we're looking in, okay? So let's do it the classic way with a match and an index. So I'll type these in as well. Say equals match, open parentheses. In this case, the thing I'm going to try to match is that word July, which is cell B1, and I'll type in a comma. The lookup array is going to be over here in column D. So I'm going to highlight from D1 to D15, and I'll type in a comma. And then here is that same kind of thing. Usually we'll do an exact match here. So I'll do an exact match, but you can see there's the other choices as well. Double click on exact match, and I'll close the parentheses. So I have equals match, open parentheses, B1, comma D1 colon D15, comma 0, close parentheses. So it gives the number 8. Why 8? Starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So July is the 8th row. So why not just count to 8 in the first place? Well, that's great if we only have 15. What if we have 1,500, right? We don't want to be counting those. So now we found that July is the 8th row using the match function. Now I want to find out what column the word sprockets is in. So I'll type in equals match, open parentheses. The lookup value this time will be the word sprockets, which is B2, and I'll type in a comma. This time for the lookup array, I'll go from D1 over to H1. Type in a comma. And then the match type, again, is going to be the exact match, which is a 0. And I'll close the parentheses. So here it says equals match, open parentheses, B2, comma D1 colon H1, comma 0, close parentheses. And I have the number 3 there. Why 3? 1, 2, 3. So we know that July is the 8th row and that sprockets is the 3rd column. Then we'll use an index to find the intersection of those two. So I'll say equals index, open parentheses. Now for the index, you're going to highlight the entire array. So I'm going to highlight from D1 to H15, and I'll type in a comma. The row number is going to be that first match that we did, which is going to be cell B4, and I'll type in a comma. And the column number will be that second match that we did, which will be B5, and then close the parentheses. So it says equals index, open parentheses, D1 colon H15, comma B4, comma B5, close parentheses. So we have 3337. Let's see if that's correct. July for sprockets is 3337. So I did a match to find the row that we were looking for. I did a match to find the column that we were looking for, and then the index is going to find the intersection of those two. So if I come up here, and if I type in August, and then widgets, notice how those numbers changed, and now it says 3154. Is that correct? August for widgets is 3154. So usually we do a match to find the row that we're looking for, and another match to find the column, and then an index will find the intersection of those two. Now remember how Remember how the classic VLOOKUP was not able to go to the left. It always had to go to the right of what we matched. The index and the match can be used to actually go to the left of what we're looking for. So let's say we have the combined number. So I know it's 8832. So I want to try to find the month that goes along with that combined number. So here, I'm going to look at this column and be able to go to the left of that. With the VLOOKUP, I wasn't able to go to the left, but with the match, I actually am able to go to the left of that. So I'll say equals match, open parentheses. The lookup value is B7, comma, and I want to look at this column from H1 to H15, comma, and then we'll find an exact match, which is the 0. And we'll close the parentheses. So it says equals match, open parentheses, B7, comma, H1 colon H15, comma, 0, close parentheses. So it says 6. So now I know that 8832 is the 6th row down in column H, right? Well, then I'll use actually an index here to return the month. So I'll say equals index, open parentheses. The array, I'm just going to highlight this first column, D1 through D15. I'll type in a comma, and I'll use that row number that we just did, which is the number 6, which is cell B8. And it turns out the other parameter here is optional. When you type it in, you can tell the optional parameters because they're in that square bracket like that. See, the column number is in the square brackets, which means it's optional. I'm going to close the parentheses. So it says equals index, open parentheses, D1 through D15, comma, B8, close parentheses. So May is the 6th row. Let's see if that's correct. Starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So with the matching index, I can go to the left of what we're looking for, whereas with the VLOOKUP, I cannot do that. Now let's try it with let's try something new that's called the X match. So the X match, excuse me, the X match is going to be a little bit different than the match. Let's try it. So I'll type in X equals X match, open parentheses. The lookup value is still going to be that word August there, which is cell B1, comma. The lookup array is still going to be D1 to D15, comma. Now, with this one, we can go the exact match. Again, we can have that one where we say exact match or next smaller item, and now we could do exact match or next larger item, and now we have the wildcard match. So the regular match, with that 0 and -1, it wasn't as clear. Here they're making it more clear, and now you can do a wildcard match. So that's a nice choice. We'll do an exact match, which I'm going to put the 0 there. Then I'll type in a comma. And now, again, I can go from the top to the bottom, or I can go from the bottom to the top. The significance of that is the same as with the XLOOKUP. Now, you see, if I have more than one match, I wasn't able to get to that before, but now I can by starting at the bottom and working, finding the next one up. So that's fine. That's a nice new feature of the X match. Actually, that last parameter is optional, so I'm not going to get rid of the comma and close the parentheses. So you see the X match is similar to the regular match, but it added a couple new features there. Let's try it again. I'll say equals X match, open parentheses. Here I want to match the word widgets, which is B2, comma. I'm going to go across this time, D1 to H1, comma. And again, you have the exact match, or the next smaller item, or the next larger item, or the wildcard. So the wildcard is something new there. We'll do another exact match. And then again, I can go from left to right, or from right to left. And that's a good little feature there. And then even here, we can make it if it's sort of ascending or descending, and that's a new feature of the X match as well. So I'll go from first to last. And we'll close that parentheses. Okay, so it says equals X match, open parentheses, B2, comma, D1 colon H1, comma, 0, comma, 1, close parentheses. So now the index is still going to be the same. I'll do equals index, open parentheses. For the array, I'm going to go from D1 to H1, or D1 to H15, comma, the row number will be that first X match that we did, which is the number 10, which is really cell B10, comma, and the column number will be that second one that we did, which is B11, and then close the parentheses. I have equals index, open parentheses, D1 colon H15, comma, B10, comma, B11, close parentheses. 3154. So is that correct? 3154. So in this sheet, we did the normal match, then we did another match to find the column that we were looking for, and we found the index to find the intersection of those two. Then this one, we were able to look over here and then go to the left of that. So I typed in a number I was looking for from the combined column. I used a match to find the row that that was in, and then I found an index to find which month that combined value was in, right? So with the match and index, I can actually go to the left of what we were looking for, whereas with the VLOOKUP, we can't. And then we did it with the X match, and you can, there was a couple new benefits of the X match compared to the normal match, and then here's another X match, and then here's another index. So hopefully you got an idea of how to look up information on other sheets with VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, match, index, and even the X match along with the index. Okay. Now let's talk about linking our sheets together. So let's go over to sheet 2014, and we can see how it has the company budget for 2014. So then we have sheet 2015. In 2015, I want to show the totals from 2014. Let me show you a couple ways to link your sheets together. So I'm going to come over back to 2014. There's a couple ways we can do it. I'm going to start on sheet 2014 and highlight these numbers across, and I'm just going to do a copy there. So I'm going to right click and pick on copy, and it's going to tell you what it's about to be copied. Then I'll go over to sheet 2015. Here I'm not going to do a paste, I'll do a paste special, and you'll see why. So I'm going to right click on that cell, I'll click on paste special, and then we're going to do paste link. Okay, so we did paste special and then paste link. We have the same numbers from sheet 2014, but look at the formula. It says 2014 exclamation point C11, which means sheet 2014 cell C11. So if C11 changes on sheet 2014, it's going to change here. The sheets are now linked together. What we did is we did a copy from one sheet, we came over to the other sheet, and we said paste special and then paste link. You can see how that says 105,000. Let's see if it's going to change. So I'll go back over here. Now if you have those blinking cells, just press the escape key to put that away. I'm going to come over here and I'll type in 20,000. And notice how that new number says 111,000. Here I'll type in 22,000. And now the new number on sheet 2014 is 108,000. If I go back to sheet 2015, this one says 108,000, 118,000. So we copied from one sheet, we came over to the other sheet, and we said paste special and then paste link. By the way, that'll also work between two different workbooks. I can copy from one workbook, go over to the other workbook, and then say paste special and then paste link, and then the two workbooks will be linked together as well. Let me show you another way to link the sheets together. So over here, I'll type in 2014 grand total. So remember now I'm in sheet 2015. So this time I'm going to start on sheet 2015. And then as I build the formula, I'm going to go back to a cell on sheet 2014. So I'm going to type in the equal sign here. Now watch. as I build my formula, I'm going to go back to sheet 2014, and then I'll pick on that grand total over here, which is cell J11. Now, I can go further with that formula, but this will make the point that I'm trying to make. When I press the Enter key right now, we'll see that same exact number on sheet 2015. So you can see how it says $1,119,486.18. When I press the Enter key, we see that same exact number over here in sheet 2015. Look at the formula again. It has the sheet name 2014 with the exclamation point and then J11. So that really means if J11 changes on that other sheet, it's going to change here as well. So we start the formula on sheet 2015 with the equal sign, and then as we were building the formula, we clicked on cells on the other sheet, and then that means if that other sheet changes, then this will also change. The sheets are now linked together. Let's see if that's the case. Let me go back over here. So I'll type in 25,000 here. Now, actually, this total will change, all of these other totals will change, and the grand total will change on the spreadsheet. So now this number says 123,000, and this number says $1,166,922.03. If I go back to sheet 2015, then it changed here as well. So I just showed you two ways to link your sheets together, and that's how you can link your workbooks together as well. All right, so those are, now we're starting to build the more complicated workbooks. Let me show you another feature here. See how 2014 is laid out, and 2015 and 2016? I would like to add all three of those sheets together, and that's going to be a feature that's called Consolidate. So I just clicked on the Consolidate sheet. Notice how the Consolidate sheet is blank right now. Well, pretty soon, we're going to add those other three sheets together into this sheet. So on the Consolidate sheet, I'll pick on cell A3, and then here is how we add the sheets together. It is called Consolidate. So I'll pick on the Data menu, Data, and then I'm going to come over here and look for this icon. It'll say the word Consolidate, those three boxes. So I'm going to click on that. Good. Usually when I do this, I do a sum, but it's nice to know the other functions are available if I ever need those. So I'll pick on sum. Now I'm going to pick on this space where it says reference, and I'm going to highlight the first sheet that I want to add up. So I'm going to pick on sheet 2014. Then I'm going to highlight a very specific range. I'm going to go from A3 over to I9, okay? A3 to I9. So if you notice, my first row contains my column headers, and my first column contains my row headers. That's going to be important. So I'll pick in the word add here. And then you see how that's now in the all references area. Then I'll pick on sheet 2015. Notice how it wants to use the same range, which in this case is correct because they're laid out in a similar way. Now, if those sheets were laid out in a different way, then we can highlight a different range there. But these ones are going to be the same. So I'll pick on Add, and now they're both in the All References area. Then I'll pick on sheet 2016 at the bottom. Notice once again that it wants to use the same range, which in this case is correct because they're laid out in the same way. So I'll pick on Add again. And now they're all in the All References area. You can keep on doing that for as many sheets as you want to add together, and you will pick an Add after each one, and you can have as many as you wanted to. Now, if you notice, the labels are on the top row, and the labels are on the left column, the way I highlighted the data before. So I'll pick on top row and left column. And then also, I'm going to check on this box, create links to the source data, right? There's that word link again. So that means if those other sheets change, this one's also going to update, which is a good thing. So the way I got to this window was I picked on the Data menu, and I picked on the Consolidate over here. Usually I'll do a sum, but it's nice to know the other ones are available if I need those. Then I picked in the space where it says Reference, And we highlight the first sheet that we wanted to add up, and we picked on add. And then we picked on each sheet after that we wanted to add up, and you pick on add after each one, and you can have as many as you wanted to. And then usually we pick on these three choices over here when that applies. I'm going to click on OK. Now we're back in the consolidate sheet. This is now the sum of the three sheets. I'm going to make column A bigger so we can see what that says there. Good. So the 55,000 represents the sum of the three sheets for January or in sales. Now, if you follow my mouse over here to the left, notice how that formula says sum C4 through C6. Well, if I pick on that plus sign to the left of number 7, then I can see row 4, 5, and 6. So this number actually comes from sheet 2014. You can see that's the same kind of formula that we saw before. This number comes from sheet 2015. This one comes from sheet 2016. So there's the link to the other sheets, like we asked for on that window, right? So if those other numbers change, these will change, which will then change the sum here. So that's that link that we talked about on the consolidate window. Now to put that away again, I can pick on this minus sign. So I can expand those sections with the plus sign and put them away with the minus sign, or I can expand them all with that number 2 up there and class them all with the number 1. That's a feature that's called a group, and that happened automatically when we did a consolidate. So the consolidate allows us to add sheets together that are laid out in a similar way. All right, very, very powerful features here. So today we did the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP and the XLOOKUP. We did match and index and XMatch and different variations of those. And then I showed you how to link the sheets together with different formulas. And then we did the consolidate where we can add sheets together. So I hope that you found today's course to be helpful, where I showed you many ways to look up information on different tables or how to link your data together.